Hey everybody, this is Christopher Saul with Mid Bay News. I'm here with Dr. Devin Stephenson, and Dr. Stephenson recently wrote an op-ed for Florida Politics, kind of talking about the future of education in general, and you made a couple of very cogent points, and I'd love to get a little bit more insight from you about what you think the future of education is, what it looks like, and how to overcome some of those challenges that we're seeing right now.
You're exactly right, Chris. It's a very relevant topic right now. The most recent Gallup polls showed that a majority of Americans are questioning the relevancy of higher education in America. And so I think it motivated me to think about what makes us relevant and what makes a good leader to lead an institution forward. And I'm convinced that it's not really about being a transformational leader or a transactional leader, but it's about managing change and being able to forecast. It's almost like, for those of us in a public institution, being a prophet in a nonprofit organization, so to speak. Having to be able to look down, take adventurous steps, and be able to make an organization run efficiently and effectively, and being able to see those road signs along the way ahead of us so that we make the right decisions that future-proof our organization. So the whole idea was, you better think change, you better act change. In other words, you better think for a change, because change is coming. It's here, and we know that it's moving very fast. I mean, years ago, we did a strategic plan for 10 years. Now there's no way you can do a strategic plan. Things change so fast. So my op-ed was about changing and setting that mindset so that every day's a new day, nothing's the same, and you've got to be able to react and respond to it.
So you're talking a lot about change, which I think is very interesting. How do you meld that with looking forward and planning for the next couple of years? How does that inform, that knowledge about change inform what you're doing on a tactical basis?
That's great. So we adopted a model here several years ago by Stephen Covey called the 4 Disciplines of Execution. Some call it 4DX. And we embraced it in the fact that many organizations will develop a strategic plan and it will be filled with so many goals, there's no way you can accomplish them all within the window of time that you're supposed to do them in. And so the organizations, they select so many goals, there's no way they can accomplish them. And so we decided that we would follow through with what Jim Collins called the big, hairy, audacious goals to wildly important goals and only have 3. Okay. Only 3 goals. And so by doing it, it's allowed us to focus our work so much better. And so what I encourage leaders to do is not to get overwhelmed with trying to do all things all the time for all people. You can't do it. You have to find out where that point of convergence is that you know you can be successful at and do it excellently. Don't try to do 8 goals and halfway do them. Do them in a spirit of mediocrity. You do them in a spirit of excellence. And in my article, I didn't specifically quote him, but Vince Lombardi said, the great coach of the Green Bay Packers, said, "You'll never catch perfection, but if you run after it, you'll catch excellence." And that's what we try to do. So we pared down the number of goals, and my suggestion to all leadership groups that I talk to, don't try to do everything in the first year, in the first 2 years, in the first 3 years. Pare it down to goals that are manageable with strategies that can help you be successful. And by doing that, you accomplish more, and people that are in your organization will feel emboldened to do even greater things because you can celebrate those successes in a major way. So I think as we look forward, my siren that I'm sounding here, and you know we use that a lot, sound the siren here with the Doolittle Raiders here at Northwest Florida State College. That siren is plan for change, and there's 3 things you have to be. You have to be available, you have to be flexible, and you have to be adaptable as a leader if you're going to be successful. Available, flexible, and adaptable. And those things create good leadership, effective leadership, efficient leadership, and help you move the needle down the line going forward. I will tell you there's much concern about higher ed right now in America. And really, how relevant is a 4-year degree in general studies? And so we're looking right now at what leads to a high demand, high wage job, and what programs should we have in place here at this institution that are helping students get there. And what's interesting is several years ago we did a campaign. We decided to monetize the campaign. And so out on the Mid-Bay Bridge, we put signs that said, "Do you want to earn $2,000 a week?" And we filled up our welding class because they're making an average of $100,000 a week. A year. Now we have some that are making 136, 140, 150,000. And some of them weld for Elon Musk and SpaceX. So we're trying to attach our programs to relevancy. Who would have ever thought 20 years ago that welding could be in the aerospace industry as it is so prevalent now? And so I think relevancy is important, but we still have to watch the changing times. We have to watch what's going to happen in the future. And as I said earlier, you've got to be almost a prophet. I will tell you that every morning I wake up early and I read the digital newsletters as to what is happening today. And every time I read one, my frame is, did that leader expect that to happen? Were they anticipating that to happen? Could they have read the tea leaves and made sure that didn't happen if it was a bad thing? If it was a good thing, I look at them and of course I want to read more about what they're doing. What are those landmark things they're doing? What are those things that are disruptive, which I love to do here. I love to be disruptive in our innovation and do things differently. Some of that comes from a business background. My major is business, not education. And so we look at outcomes in that regard. But I'm constantly looking at the future and how do I connect this institution, knowing the future is getting closer and closer and closer, to make sure that we're future-proofing our decisions.
Do you find that, especially with state colleges, you'll be having almost repeat customers as things continue to change in the workforce?
There's no question. Knowledge is moving at a rapid pace. I'll give you an example. Several years ago, we started our cybersecurity program. Have a phenomenal director, phenomenal faculty member, great class, great students. But we realized over the last year there was another piece that had emerged within 2 years. And it was this whole idea of artificial intelligence and AI. And so now we are embedding a certification within cybersecurity that we never even thought about 3 or 4 years ago when we were laying out this Triumph Gulf Coast grant, the Walton Works project. That's what created our cybersecurity program. We never even thought about artificial intelligence, but now it's very, very important. And it is a recognized industry certification. So we're going to embed it in that cybersecurity as a part. I think you have to constantly be on what I call the ledge. You live on the ledge or you're taking up too much room. You got to live on the ledge. And some people like to live on the cutting edge. I like to live on the bleeding edge. A lot more going on the bleeding edge than there is on that cutting edge. And that's where the action is taking place. So I think for us to have had the success that we've had, and for us to continue to be able to marshal the attention of grant funders, of others, our goal here is to become an influencer. And you have to stay out in front to be able to do that.
If you're talking to somebody that is one of those many, many people that have sort of lost faith in the value of a degree, what do you tell them to convince them otherwise?
Well, some people will say that a college education is not necessary, but I think that's the wrong nomenclature to use. A college education, in my opinion, is necessary. A 4-year degree may not be necessary, but a college education, in my opinion, is. One that provides you some thought processes. Here's what we know. We know that individuals that are 18 to 23 go through the most significant changes in their life. They're freeing interpersonal relationships. They're becoming autonomous. They're seeing things in life sort of out from under a shelter as such. And the college environment helps them to even develop more. We call it student development theory. And that they don't experience before that because they're in a real, to be honest, more of a familial kind of pressure cooker. They're in a peer pressure at their high schools. And when they get to this institution, they really become independent. They become autonomous. And so we believe that this particular period of time, from 18 to 23, is the most formative period where we have an opportunity to get them to think about what they can be. And so I do believe that colleges are important. Programmatic development and programs have to be right, they have to be relevant, and they have to lead to a high-wage, high-demand job. And you know, we're seeing it here. You come here, you can go into our nursing program, make $70,000 to $80,000 a year with a big signing bonus, and even from there, you can go and become a nurse practitioner. Perfect example is my daughter. She started out as an associate degree nurse, an RN, working in ICU. Then she got her degree as a bachelor's degree nurse, a BSN, and became a charge nurse over a unit. And then this past August, she even transcended that to become a nurse practitioner. So you put the pieces of the puzzle together. She was doing really well with an associate degree. She could have stayed there with that associate degree because they're in high demand. In the state of Florida, by 2035, there will be a demand for 60,000 nurses that we don't even have the workforce for now. So I think we have to be smart about what we say is college. And college is beyond high school. And at this institution, we provide an array of programming for those that want to seek that route. However, if you want to become a lawyer or a doctor or a dentist, you can come here for your first 2 years and then go on into a high-wage, high-demand job. But the idea that people will say you don't need college, to me, is wrong. You do need college, you just need to be in the right program. I often hear our governor talk about the degrees that are given, and he will say something like, well, you're not going to get a great job if you get a degree in a general studies degree in the study of zombies. I mean, what's the demand for that? You have to find the programming that leads to a job. And so what we try to get our folks to do, and we plan and program here around this region to try to keep individuals in Northwest Florida. That's very important to us. In fact, we know that more than 90% of the individuals that train here or are educated here will either come back or they'll stay in this region. So that should be important to economic developers, to workforce developers, and to community developers, knowing that if the students come here, most likely they're going to stay. So that's my take on college education. I think it's vital. I think it's important. And frankly, I made my kids go to college. My son has his doctoral degree in higher ed. He chose that route. My daughter chose the more career ed. They both do very, very well.
What is one skill, and this is my last question, but what is one skill that you wish everybody had, just generally, just every American walking the street? What is one thing you wish that they knew?
Well, let me say something about that. I think this is important. Some people call it soft skills, and I abandoned that word years ago. We used to say, well, they need to be able to, if you go in a welding program, or if you want to be an English professor, you certainly need to be able to spell. You certainly need to be able to put sentences together. You need to be able to write creatively. You need to be able to teach that as well. But I believe that at that point, years ago, we talked about soft skills. Okay, you need to be able to get along with people. You need to be able to be punctual. You need to be able to work as a team. You need to be able to be responsible and accountable for your own work. Those are not soft skills. Those are essential skills. And so we've now abandoned talking about soft skills that are, jello, to essential skills in the workforce. Because if I were to go right out here in this community now and talk with commerce leaders and chamber leaders who have businesses and manufacturing and industry in this area, they would tell you that there are essential skills that people need. Number one, you need to be punctual. But in my opinion, the most important right now is interpersonal relationships, what I call people skills, and building relationships. Because everything we do now is team-oriented. There are no lone rangers in our organizations anymore. we're very, very, very interactive, very collaborative in the work that we do. So relationship development is important. And here's what I think has happened, Chris. We have created a generation that has basically become inoculated with a smart device, and they're buried in it. So it's like my attention is focused on this piece of technology, and the ability to be able to get along with you in the setting and understand that you've got your own human perspectives, you've got your preferences, you've got, we all, by the way we were raised, we have our own biases or we have our own thoughts about things. And so we've created a generation now that's looking more at the technology as being the driver than the ability to be able to get along with my neighbor in the cubicle next to me. In other words, let me just send an email through the wall, and that's the way I'll communicate with you. And what we know is texting and emailing is the lowest form of communication because you can't see the facial expressions, the body language. So I do believe personal relationships, building those relationships, and I had a mentor that taught me a long time, many, many years ago, about relationship development and relationship management. You've got to develop the relationships, and then you've got to be able to effectively manage those. And so we build a culture here that requires people to work together. If you can't do that, you will not be successful here. And that culture is pervasive. And culture will eat strategy for breakfast. And so it doesn't matter what kind of strategy you got. If your strategy is to come in here, bury yourself in your computer, and live there, it's not going to work. But if your strategy is, I want to fit into that culture where people are doing great things, we're all celebrating, we're working as a team, we're synergizing, then you're going to be really successful. And I'm seeing, in recent days, we've seen major corporations, Fortune 500 corporations saying, get back to work. This working from home, for some people that works. If you're, for some people it may. But in large corporations where you're synergizing lots of things, that doesn't work. It's all about relationship management and building that kind of relationship. Just like your work is very, very people-oriented. We see that. And you have great people skills as a person. Even though you're a good manager, and you know how to build a great business and you do good things, the thing that attracts me to you is the fact that you understand the people skill side of this and that people move mountains, not necessarily smartphones.
Did I forget to ask anything? Is there anything else that I should talk about in this series?
Well, no. I think you've done a real good job. I think as we look forward, working together is going to be more important for Northwest Florida than ever before. I think the opportunities and possibilities are great. In fact, there was an author probably a decade ago that wrote, effective leaders see the possibilities before they become obvious to others. That could have been written just as well. Effective leaders see collaboration before others see it. And so I'm constantly looking at how do we find teams to make things work. And if you were to ask me what right now is the primary motivator for me, it's this. I don't care who gets the credit for anything that goes on. Just let me be a part of the change that makes a difference. And so if you were to come and say, what is that one thing that drives you? It's that, and it may be because, I'm a little older here, I'm a baby boomer, and I've seen a lot. Now for me, it's not about who gets the credit. It's about let's work together and let's let it be a we instead of a me.